Man, what an exciting time it is to be a college football fan. We've got legislation going through the Senate right now. What could be more exciting than that? We've got senators attacking conference commissioners. We've got conferences attacking other conferences. We've got member institutions of conferences attacking each other as well. And we're not going to talk about any of it today. We're actually going to talk about what we're looking forward to this upcoming football season, some things that I want to be taking a look at, and I'm honestly just excited for football to be here. By the time that this episode airs, we're going to have less than 70 days until week 1 of the college football season. We're going to have roughly, give or take a few days, 40 days until fall camps open. Shortly after that, we're going to get some intel in. Definitely a bunch of people are going to be writing about what's happening in fall camp, things to look out for, things that they're seeing. So once that fall camp intel starts coming in, that's when college football season is officially upon us. But right now, we're still in talking season. It is a very special day, and that's because this is episode 1 of the Saturday Report. It's going to be a college football podcast. I'm going to talk about all of that later, who we are, what we do, who I am, why I'm starting this podcast, all of that. But today is the inaugural or the premiere episode, and I'm very excited. It's a very special day. Full transparency, this is my first time ever doing a podcast. This is my first time ever doing a video podcast at that. So I'm trying to figure out how to talk in the microphone, how to look at the camera. I promise you, if you're watching this, it's only going to get better from here. At least as far as everything I've heard, your first one's always going to be your worst, and everything beyond that's going to get better. So if I make your ears bleed or like I just kick the camera stand, please come back. It's going to get better. We're just going to be talking about college football here. There's the pause. One other thing on top of that, make sure if you do enjoy the video, if you get something good out of this, like, subscribe on YouTube, leave a review or a comment. If you're listening on podcast, if you're listening on YouTube, all of it is going to help to spread the word and to get this channel out there. I appreciate it so much. And as we get into the 2026 college football season, we want to be as ready for that as possible with as many people behind us as we can get. Now, today on the show, we're going to talk about a few things. Number one, we're going to talk about LSU and Lane Kiffin, what's to come between that relationship. Secondly, we're going to be talking about things that I'm looking for in the 2026 college football season, things that I want to look out for, things that are upcoming that I want to make sure we're staying on top of. And very lastly, we're going to finish it off with a little bit more about who I am, why I'm doing this, what the show is, what the purpose of it's going to be, all of that. Everyone's got a host of opinions on Lane Kiffin and LSU coming into the 2026 college football season, and rightfully so. Lane Kiffin's a very polarizing person. LSU is a large institution, and the combination of those is click central for basically anybody that talks about him. It's not the only reason that we're talking about him this first episode, but it definitely is a big reason. And I think that Lane Kiffin's getting ready to build LSU into something special. And I don't just say that because I grew up an LSU fan and am still an LSU fan. Spoiler alert for later. That's going to come later in the show. But I say that for a few reasons that I'll make sure to detail here for you. The first is that he's already recruiting really well, and he's also hit the portal really well this past cycle. With players like Jordan Seaton coming through, you've got Ty Benefield that came through from Boise State. He's got Sam Levitt. I didn't even remember that one. He's got players that are coming through that are going to make a real impact this year and filled some of the gaps that were had with specifically the O-line, some safeties leaving, Mansour Delane being a corner last year leaving, so we're trying to shore up the defensive secondary. And obviously he needed a quarterback. He's doing it at a very, very high clip right now. He's portaling well, and then his recruiting, they weren't looking too great as of a couple weeks ago for the 2027 class, and just recently they had a bunch of 4- and 5-star commits that had committed for that class, so things are really looking up there. And the gist of LSU is that it almost recruits itself, so it's not like he needed a ton of help, because LSU is the only big school in the state of Louisiana which produces a lot of high school football talent and a lot of future NFL talent as well. So he was going to get a lot of players anyway, but he also added Ed Orgeron to his staff, who you put Ed Orgeron at LSU and you put him in a recruiting role, he's almost unstoppable. He does an amazing job recruiting wherever he's at, but he loves LSU more than anything, I think, in this world. And so he does a great job of recruiting LSU. Lane Kiffin's obviously recruiting it well as well. So I don't think he's going to have any problem with getting talent to LSU at all. Furthermore, beyond that, this coming year, we're going to have the Lane Kiffin offense paired with the Blake Baker defense. And the Blake Baker defense has a lot of returning production, or a lot of key players that are going to be returning to that defense, which he moved from the 100-and-something place in scoring defense 2 years ago all the way up into the 30s last year. So we're going to see how much better that defense is going to get, but we know Lane Kiffin can help coach offense, can build offenses. We got Charlie Weiss Jr. calling the plays. We know that's going to go well. It went well last year with Trinidad Chambliss. I haven't really seen a college football season where Lane Kiffin has not been able to put a successful offense on the field. So I think the combination for this year is going to be something special. You can say in years to come, Blake Baker's probably not going to be there. I agree, he's probably not going to be there. At that point, it'll be how well can you backfill the defensive position, or the defensive coordinator position. I think your defensive position players are always just going to be good. Louisiana produces great defensive players. But how well are you going to backfill that coordinator? That's a talk or conversation for another year, for another time. Thirdly, and this is something that Brian Kelly had a real problem getting behind him, and he was the first coach that really would have had to deal with it, is Lane Kiffin's got the boosters and he's got the donors behind him, seemingly to a full clip. Brian Kelly, think what you want about him. I think he was a good coach for the time. He just wasn't right for the Tigers, obviously. And a lot of it seemed to be that he did not want to fully embrace and accept Louisiana. He would go out there, he would talk to the boosters, he would talk to the people, but he wasn't all into the shaking hands and kissing babies. And because of it, people were not all into giving him their money and trusting him fully with the program. Lane Kiffin comes in, he fully embraces Louisiana, the culture, the state, the people, the high schools, all of it. He's made great connections, and because of it, the money has followed. And you can see that with the current staff that they have, or I guess the current talent that they have, the $40 million roster, allegedly, that they have, or they're going to be putting on the field this year. You can see that with how much money they spent to get Brian Kelly out of there, to get his entire staff out of there, to get Lane Kiffin in there. LSU's got plenty of money. The state of Louisiana has plenty of money that's flowing around with all of the oil money they have there and everything else. All it takes is the right guy to come in, make a few key decisions, position themselves in the right way, and all of a sudden, year after year, you have somebody who can be competing for playoff and national championship appearances. Now, here's one of the big things that I've heard and seen online, and I'm sure you might be saying it right now, especially if you're not an LSU fan or if you do not like Lane Kiffin, and that's that this might work out for the next couple of years, but Lane Kiffin's just going to end up leaving you. And first off, that might be true. I'm not gonna hold that, like, that might be a real thing. Lane Kiffin maybe stay here for a few years, an NFL position. Maybe Kalen DeBoer doesn't do well. He gets fired. The Alabama position comes open. He may pack up his bags and jet all over again. He's got a history of doing that elsewhere. He's done it at Tennessee to go to USC. He's done it at he did it at Ole Miss, obviously, to come to LSU. He did it at FAU to go to Ole Miss. I think more people were open to that happening just because it is such a large step up in job. So I fully understand that can absolutely happen. Here's what I would say in my counter argument to that. When taking this position, he really leaned on his mentors, and specifically his mentor, Nick Saban. Nick Saban, who essentially revived his career from the ashes, helped to build him into the coach that he is, establish him, and then send him on his way over to FAU. He leaned a lot on Nick Saban on making this decision and figuring out whether he wanted to stay at Ole Miss or come to LSU. Now, I say that because I think Nick Saban was a very big piece in getting him to LSU and telling him LSU is a better job. Nick Saban has experience at LSU. If you didn't know, he coached LSU. He essentially revived LSU from the ashes as well. A couple of things revived by Nick Saban there. And what I really believe is that Nick Saban told him LSU is going to be a better job. It's got the fertile recruiting ground. It's got the people behind it. And I remember a couple of years ago, I think it was, Nick Saban did an interview or a speech where he had talked about one of the greatest mistakes or the greatest regrets he had in his career. And he mentioned at the time that it was leaving LSU to go to the NFL. And I think that stuck with him. I think that's why he's going to push Lane Kiffin to stay. But that also may not be the case. Like Lane's going to Lane. He's going to do what he's going to do. So I think if Lane decides to stay at LSU for a long time, that he can really build them into something special. I don't know if dynasty is the word to go for. I don't know if there's going to be any more dynasties in college football with the way that we're structured right now. Again, legislation coming down the pipe that may help with those kind of things being able to be built again by limiting transfers and giving players more time to play, limiting how many times they can redshirt or medically, all that stuff. But I think Lane's going to be able to build LSU into something real, probably in the near future, in the next couple of years. All right, we got through one segment. I know it was a little bit rough. Thank you again if you're staying around. We're going to jump on to the next one here in just a second. But again, remember, if you haven't liked already, like the video and subscribe if you can. Every year around this time, I start getting really excited and looking forward to the college football season. And I start thinking about the different things that I'm going to be looking for as we get into the season. Before, it's been how does the 12-team playoff affect how teams are playing and positioning themselves at the end of the season, different things like that are coming up throughout. And so this year, I've got a few things that I'm looking for going into the 2026 college football season. A couple of them are some trends that we've seen previously that I want to see if they are going to continue. And one of them is something that's new, that is brand new for this year, and I want to see how it affects the institutions that it's going to be affecting, namely in the SEC. First, how are first-year coaches doing? Curt Cignetti kind of broke the mold on coaches needing to essentially fail or fall flat on their face in the first year. Now, obviously, there can be some building periods here, but if Curt Cignetti is going to be the banner that people are looking to and say, well, he did it, so why can't you do it, especially at a bigger school that's not like Indiana, that's not a complete no-name, that I think won 2 or 3 games the year before he got there, all the way to winning double-digit games in a national championship in a couple of years. If he can do it at no-name Indiana, why can't you do it here at our bigger, better, fancier, more wealthy institution? And so here's a handful of names that I'm going to be really looking at and seeing how their first year plays out. Number 1, Alex Golesh at Auburn. I think that he's got a little bit of building to do, obviously, at Auburn. The Hugh Freeze and his last staff didn't leave it in the absolute best place. They had some transfers going out, all that stuff. So we're going to see how he does in year 1. He's got his quarterback. His quarterback knows his system. Let's see how he fares. Secondly is going to be John Sumrall at Florida. He's in a better position than Alex Golesh is in, I believe. I think Florida retained more talent. Obviously, DJ Lagway's out the door, so we got to backfill in that position. But in overall talent, Florida didn't necessarily lose everybody to the portal. He retained a lot of good production that's going to be returning, and now it's on him to be able to set a standard and set a level of physicality back to that team that just hasn't been there before. Also, if you can just line up on special teams and get enough people out on kickoff or the right amount of people on kickoff and just do the small things right, I think you're going to put yourself in a much better place than you were in previously. Also, we've got the defense, and that defense is just nasty. It was nasty last year. It's going to stay nasty this year. I think he's in a decent spot. I'm really excited to see how he does. Next is going to be James Franklin over at Virginia Tech. Obviously, the year before, he was at Penn State. Penn State, they kicked him out of the door whenever he did not meet his standard, meet their standard, and his standard of what he essentially started the season with. Everyone at Penn State, I think, is going to want to see him fail because they will feel justified that, hey, we said he wasn't the guy for so long. We said he wasn't going to get us to the mountaintop for as long as we did. Finally, he's out. We're going to go do our thing with our guy. You James Franklin, go to Virginia Tech and see what you can do there. It's a lesser program in our eyes. Little do we forget, Virginia Tech 20 years ago was at the pinnacle of college football. It was at the top. It was consistently competing for national championships over a handful of year period. And so James Franklin goes in and he can be the coach that revives this program if he does the right things, if he does it the right way. I'm very excited to see how year one goes for him and how he can hopefully parlay some success early into later success, because I would love to see the ACC be more competitive than it has been recently. Next, the guy that replaced James Franklin is going to be Matt Campbell. He came over from Iowa State, brought a lot of Iowa State players over with him. How well are him and his team or his former players going to fare when they go from the Big 12 all the way over to the Big 10? Usually it's going to be better competition, I would say. However, one thing Matt Campbell's got on his side is the schedule. They are free from... They avoid Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana this year. Granted, they still have to play Michigan. They still got to play USC. Washington's in there. But they're going to avoid the 3 toughest games in the Big Ten. So can they go 10-2 with that schedule? Maybe 9-3. 9-3 I think is very doable. 10-2 may be a bit of a stretch in year one. But I think if they get to 9-3, 10-2, that's going to be a big win for that fan base. It's going to be a lot better than they believe Franklin left them off last year, and it's going to be something for them to be able to build on in coming years. And finally, Kyle Whittingham at Michigan. I just want to see how that transition goes for him from Utah over to Michigan. We still got Bryce Underwood there. Don't forget about that. He's still a great quarterback, the number 1 player a couple cycles ago, a couple classes ago. We'll see how his development is coming along and what he can build around. I think it's still going to be a hard-nosed, tough defense to face, but with any coach in year one, it's really difficult to know exactly what you're going to get. So I'm excited to see all of those guys. Second thing that I'm going to be looking out for in this 2026 college football season are the portal quarterbacks still the answer for these top-tier schools? In years past, we've seen the best performing schools have portal quarterbacks. It's fairly consistent. It's been consistent since 2019 when Joe Burrow came in from Ohio State to LSU. Obviously, he had the first year. It wasn't so great. Second year, his final year comes in, wins the Heisman, leads him to a national championship. And since then, it seems like the trend is the better teams have quarterbacks that portaled in, not necessarily ones that came in as a recruit out of high school to those teams. And there's been a couple of them that haven't fit that mold. J.J. McCarthy comes to mind at Michigan. But this year, does that stay the same? This was not a very big portal year for quarterbacks. Obviously, Sam Leavitt goes to LSU. Brendan Sorsby went to Texas Tech. We all know exactly how that came, or how that ended up at this point with him no longer playing college football. Those were the 2 biggest names in the portal that I can remember, at least right now. And so we've got a few players that I want to keep an eye on that are quarterbacks that were in the portal. Number 1, again, Sam Leavitt. I want to see how he does at LSU. Does he turn it up a notch? Does being in the LSU and Lane Kiffin system make him take that next step and be a Heisman contender, lead them to the playoffs, lead them far in the playoffs? Or does he still have those off and on hot and cold moments? Because at Arizona State his sophomore year, he was really, really hot in some games, and a lot of times he did play down to his competition, and he just didn't make the smartest decisions or smartest reads whenever he needed to. Second, and a couple of these next 2 are portal quarterbacks technically, but they weren't in this last cycle. Dante Moore at Oregon, we know he's a great player. How does he progress? How does he lead the Ducks this coming year? And Julian Sayin over at Ohio State, coming from Alabama a couple of years ago. How does he take over that Buckeyes team in another year and lead them? I think those are going to be the 3 most interesting quarterbacks from the portal to be able to watch this year, the 3 that have the best chance of making a large impact on their team and making a deep playoff run. But for the first year in a while, it seems like we have a handful of quarterbacks that are homegrown that have a really good chance to make a big impact in a deep run as well. The first one I'm really excited to watch is CJ Carr at Notre Dame. A lot has been made of this kid. He's coming off a full year of being able to start now. And so year 2, how is that progress jump, or what does that progress jump look like? How many more plays is he going to be able to make? Is he going to be the guy for them? I think he's got another year after this too. So this is going to, I think, just be a big and a good development year for him. But high hopes and high expectations on Notre Dame. How does he hold to those? We've got Gunnar Stockton at Georgia, another homegrown guy. How is he going to fare with the Georgia Bulldogs this year? Again, another team with really, really high expectations. How does he hold to those? How well does he lead the team? Does that arm improve at all? Third is going to be either of the Crimson Tide quarterbacks, Keelan Russell, Austin Mack. Who's going to, number one, win that quarterback battle? It seems like most people are leaning toward Keelan Russell winning the quarterback battle. The nice part about what Alabama has here is it seems they have 2 quarterbacks that are fighting to be the best of the best. You don't have 2 quarterbacks that are in a competition to see who's the best of the worst. So who's going to emerge at the top of that? Both of these are homegrown guys. And finally, we all know him, Arch Manning at Texas. How is he progressing in what may be his final year? He might come back for another. But how is he going to be progressing? Is he going to take the reins of this offense and lead them to a national championship season, which seems to be the expectation around there, if I'm not mistaken? How well is he going to do that? I think he's poised to make a very big leap this year. I know last year a lot of people were placing very high expectations on him very early. That's just not how college quarterbacks tend to operate. Those first handful of games whenever you're starting, especially if you haven't started in an SEC game or a Big Ten game or a meaningful college football game before, they're tough. It's a lot. It's coming at you fast, and it takes some time to adjust. So this year, I think Arch Manning is poised to take a really, really big step forward. And lastly, the final thing that I'm looking for in 2026 is how is the 9-game SEC conference schedule going to be affecting the SEC teams, namely the teams that are at the very top of the SEC. I don't think this is going to be affecting so much the bottom third or the middle third, but that top third I think is going to have some lasting and lingering effects of the extra SEC game in their yearly schedule. So if you didn't know, SEC used to play 8 conference games. Now they play 9 starting this year. And I understand the argument that other people are going to have on why this shouldn't be affecting them, because the Big Ten and everybody else, they play their 9-game conference schedule and it doesn't affect them. So the SEC should do the exact same thing. And I understand that take. I want you to take a step back and try to understand the other position, which is the bottom third. I think we can agree the bottom third of the Big Ten or the Big 12 or whoever, ACC, whoever else, is not on the same level that the bottom third of the SEC is. I think the bottom third of the SEC is going to be quite a bit ahead of teams like Purdue and Rutgers and whoever have you. I think even the middle third of the SEC is going to be ahead of the middle third of all other conferences. The top third of the Big Ten right now is better than the top third of the SEC has been. And I will posit you that. I will give you that. The Big Ten, top heavy as it is, has been the better conference as of the last few years. But let's just go into I don't have the schedules pulled up in front of me, but let's say that you're Georgia and you're Ohio State, you're the SEC and you're the Big Ten. And you flip schedules. And Ohio State, instead of playing Maryland and Rutgers and Purdue on their schedule, which might be their 3 easiest games if they even have them on their schedule, you instead switch those or swap them with Auburn, Florida, and Kentucky. I know the first thing you're going to say, we'd still win those games. And you absolutely probably would still win those games. My argument is that they'd be a tougher fight. They'd be harder to win than the other 3, than the 3 that you would currently have with Rutgers and Purdue and Maryland. They'd be a tougher fight. Your players would be getting more beat up. You'd have greater wear and tear on the players and on the team. And although that isn't going to affect your record, because let's just say you won those games, what it is going to affect is after conference championship week, after the first round of the playoffs, you need your team to stay healthy for as long as possible. And whenever you have high level competition or you're playing against higher level competition, you are going to have greater wear and tear on the members of your team and especially on your starters. So, how are those top third or top tier SEC teams that are going to be getting into the playoffs, how are they going to fare the deeper they get into the season or the deeper they get into the playoffs? Are they going to have more injuries? Are they going to have more significant injuries to significant players? I'm curious to see how that goes. I could be eating my words as well by the end of the season if Texas goes and makes the Final Four or the national championship game and they get by and they have one freak injury to a defensive back or something like that. I can eat my words, right? Because they didn't have, a quarter of their defense out or a quarter of their starters out for the season. But football is going to football. It's a weird game. And there are freak injuries, and there are also just wear and tear injuries. And I'm curious to see if more of those wear and tear injuries come up. All right. We are through officially 2 segments. Again, I know it's been a little rusty. It's only going to get better from here. So again, like, subscribe, comment, leave some information on what you want to hear me cover as well. I want to make sure that this show is made for you guys, the viewers. I don't want to just talk about what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what you want to talk about. I really want to build a community here. So I guess this is a good segue into my final segment, which is what in the world is this show? Who am I? What is the purpose of this show? What's it going to do? What are we going to talk about here, etc. Number 1, hi, I'm Justin Andes. I live in Colorado. I have for almost all of my life, but I was born in Louisiana, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Moved up to Colorado whenever I was 6 years old. And whenever we moved up to Colorado, the only thing that we could bring with us from Louisiana outside of possessions was LSU sports, namely LSU football. I grew up in what felt like the golden era of LSU football. Whenever you got to watch guys like Jacob Hester and Tyrann Mathieu and Patrick Peterson and just all of the vaunted defenses that LSU was going to build as I was to grow up, and those guys were like superheroes to me. And seeing as that was one of the only things that we could really bring up from Louisiana with us, and that was something that our family and specifically me and my dad loved to do together, it was something that we watched every Saturday in the fall. Not only LSU, but usually a lot of SEC games, and a love and a passion for that has brought me into just loving college football as a whole. So that's a little bit of where I come from. I'm a huge a huge LSU fan. Have been a fan of just watching the SEC for a long time, and now recently, over the last 4 or 5 years, I've loved just watching college football as a whole. Watching Oregon, watching Ohio State, watching the Big Ten, watching ACC and Big 12. All of it has become really fun. Whereas before, I was very much an SEC homer. What's this show going to be? Number 1, it's going to be college football year-round. College football is the greatest sport on the planet, and I think it will continue to be the greatest sport on the planet if it doesn't get ruined by corporate interests and everything else that's going on. But aside from that, I love college football. I love everything that it is. I love the Fridays and Saturdays on campus, the tailgates, the pageantry involved, the entrances, the stadiums, all of it. It's amazing, and it's the only thing that I want to talk about. So we're talking about college football. I want to make this show for you, the viewer, not just for me. So I want to get your feedback on things that I should be talking about, things we want to dive deeper into, and really build a community around this show. So, again, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to wrap it up here. I've never had to wrap up a podcast before, so this is going to be a rough one. But thank you again for watching or for listening. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment on YouTube, leave a review on Apple or Spotify, and we will catch you next time.